Good morning, America, and welcome to this morning's webinar. My name is Daryl Moon, and I'll be your host today. This is our third webinar in our new series of webinars on workplace mental health and well-being best practices. These are short 30-minute webinars brought to you by Going on Offense and sponsored by Resilience Pro. As we all know, the pandemic has heightened the need to address mental health. The uncertainty that we all face is having dramatic impact on emotional well-being. And this series of webinars is being conducted to share best practices of supporting emotional well-being and mental health in the workplace. Today's webinar will focus on enhancing awareness of well-being at work. I'm pleased to have with me as my guest panelist, my friend, Michelle Summers. She's the Wellness Coordinator at NFP in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today.
And I'm glad to have you on and joining us. Would you like to take a few minutes and just introduce yourself and tell a little bit about yourself and what you do as a wellness coordinator?
Sure. My background before I came to NFP, actually, I worked in a hospital system and I was a wellness coach. So deep down inside of me, there's a coach. I loved working with people one-on-one in that stressful setting, actually, in a hospital. I'm also a dietitian and a certified personal trainer. NFP is a national company that focuses on actually managing employer risks in the employee benefits space. We're a leader in innovative solutions and have really seen this as a time that people and companies and employers really need those innovative solutions. So what I do is I work alongside the different clients, and we do very customized solutions for everything that we do. Nothing is cookie cutter. I remember when I interviewed, I wanted to kind of know how it worked, and they said, it doesn't work like that. We customize every single thing for every situation. Well, right now, of course, that's even more important than ever. What I do is we have some wonderful partners, and certainly there are a lot of wellness vendors out there, but Oriant is one of our wonderful partners, and I walk beside and alongside the client to bring those resources to the client for whatever their need is at the time.
Nice, great. So the first question I have for you as we start this off, Michelle, is how has your own knowledge of health and well-being helped you personally to get through this year's pandemic?
So I am so grateful that I have the knowledge that I have, because when it all started, you know, I would say heightened anxiety is something we don't even need to establish. Everybody has heightened anxiety. I feel like I have partners and resources and knowledge, and I know what I know to be true is that human beings can go through very, very, very hard times and come out stronger on the other side. So I might be waxing a little bit philosophical, but I look to a lot of those things, and knowing that this too shall end. It's going on and on and on, but we're going to be stronger on the other side. I go on a walk every morning, so my go-tos are really pretty simple. You know, a lot of everything was stripped away. I was going to the gym every day. Well, you can't do that. And I thought, how am I going to do this? I mean, that's my first question. But I have established walking and walking and walking and walking. So I personally manage stress primarily with physical activity, even though I'm a dietitian. But I also look for the things that I can do something about. And I have a favorite quote, and that's Henry Ford, actually, who said, if you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right. So anytime that I need a boost, I'm looking at resources, I'm reading, I'm learning, I'm thinking, what can I learn during this time? So I could kind of go on and on, but it really has to do with going and finding resources and connecting.
Nice. Do you think now more than ever it's important to promote health and well-being at the work site, and that employers get behind this movement?
Well, absolutely, because Well, when I say at the work site, where is that? Obviously, as a group and as a team, we're all still a team, but our team, for example, is still working completely remotely. And, that has caused people to grow in a number of ways. We're doing things we never thought we could do, technology-wise, Zoom-wise, this kind of thing. It's created opportunities, but also stresses. The fact that we are not together, I think, means that communication has to even be more effective, more often, all the time, because silence, I think, makes you feel alone. So I think certainly now more than ever, there are different stressors and they're increased in intensity. And regardless of how we're getting a little bit more comfortable, probably working from home, the unpredictability is what leads to anxiety. And we're not out of this yet. So absolutely.
Well, and what have you seen employers doing when it comes to promoting health and mental health and, just kind of keeping this forefront in this new remote environment? What are some of the strategies you've seen being used to promote well-being during this pandemic?
Well, again, a lot of resources are out there, such as Oriant and other different companies that offer awesome resources. So we have one company that actually was going to kick off their wellness program. So they're offering wellness programs. One was going to kick it off April 1st, and that actually just wasn't a good time. That happened to be in a hospital system. And so it was put off, but they knew that we need to get this going. So finally, about a couple of months later, they did. And one of the first things they've done to bring people together is have a challenge, because even though we're in a big challenge, to do something kind of fun and out of the ordinary, to come together, count your steps, compete with each other, we have to bring some activities and fun and sometimes silliness even to our everyday work to bring us together.
Well, what signal do you think that sends from the leadership of the company to say, hey, you know what, we're going to do this anyway? This is important.
So every wellness program and every employer is really telling their employees, I care about you. I care about your well-being. I care about your health. I care how you are doing when you're at home or wherever you're working. You are worth investing in, and you're our greatest asset. I mean, it's just you're valued. You're valued. We care.
And I think that's important that employees respond well to that, to know that this, their personal struggles right now particularly are, the leaders care about that, and they care about offering resources and services to deal with that. And what would you say the topics have really centered around in wellness and well-being because of the pandemic? What are some of the topics you're seeing being addressed through wellness initiatives?
Well, of course, you've already mentioned this. What the employers are asking for, and especially even on a kind of a management training level, is resources for mental health, because managers are trained to manage groups, of course, but they've never possibly been trained to manage and try and provide resources to prevent, breakdowns in mental health. I'm not saying a full breakdown, but we're all fighting this battle to stay ahead of, melancholy or depression or lack of focus or all the different things that loneliness, So they're asking for mental health resources, but in our case, and what is really, really neat about working for NFP is that we have found that of all the different places that companies, organizations, individuals, but we're kind of focusing on employers right now, can get information, they have turned to their trusted broker. They have turned to us, and we have the privilege of helping them find the particular resources. So they do stem around mental health right now. There is certainly a concern. And I think, you know, it's not going to be over anytime soon. There's certainly a concern about the well-being and mental health of society, actually. In Colorado, for example, my husband happens to work in a field where he is involved in a lot of meetings and has some information. So substance use in Colorado is up about 50%, and
Wow.
the mental health kind of fallout from that issues are up 72%. And that's in, what is it, about 8 months we've been kind of going through this. So not to be doom and gloom, because that's the whole thing, is it's taking the situation, what can we do about it? What can we do to prevent that from happening? We know, or we would be naive as an employer to think that it's not affecting our workforce in some way. And everybody's different, you know, it's generally, we're all in the same circumstances. How we individually manage stress or get stressed or what our circumstances are is going to be different. But nobody's going to be unaffected. I mean, I would say, I could say that with great gusto.
Yeah, no, there's nobody that's not affected by this. And it's kind of why we started this in the first place. The whole idea of, we can't just hope that everybody's going to be okay, because they're not. Research is showing that the long-term impact of this pandemic could have far more reach in our emotional and mental health and the struggles that can occur from that than the economic impact or the physical impact of the virus. And clearly, you know, this whole effort to bring experts in, have these discussions, put them online is to proactively promote that we can't just sit back and hope everybody's going to be okay, because we're not.
And back to your question a minute ago, so we have a lot of inquiries about different EAP offerings. Again, managers really aren't trained to be counselors, and so, but they're going to be possibly the first person or so that would know that somebody's struggling, because
Right.
it will show in the employee's work, productivity, and things like that. We are getting a lot of requests like that, and so I wanted to mention your, the co-sponsor of this today is Resilience Pro, and you had actually sent me information on that quite some time ago, because it's something we could offer our clients. And it is just a full package, of course, of everything based on building resilience. And that's the key word. Resilience is what we need right now. We will come out stronger on the other side, but that's after we basically stress, what am I trying to say? We flex our resilience muscles. We're gonna have to flex those. It's just like lifting weights, and I don't mean to diminish the importance, but it's kind of like, you know, when you lift weights, what's happening is you're actually tearing that muscle apart. And then it's the rebuilding of all the muscle fibers and all the muscle tissue that makes it stronger. So you tear it down before it can be built up stronger.
No, it's a good analogy. Well, and you know, it's kind of obvious, but the impact that a person's health and well-being has on the product that goes out the door is enormous. In fact, it's of almost every company, maybe with some exceptions based on manufacturing, but largely in today's service industry, the health and well-being of your workforce is a direct, you know, relationship to what your customers are experiencing on the other side.
That's absolutely correct. There is no way that if we are struggling as individuals, that it's not going to affect our work. But if we have resources, a place to turn, you know, as a coach, I'm going to go back to that now. I keep thinking about that relationship. I had people in the hospital, and hospital settings are very stressful, and right now probably even more, but caregivers give and give and give and give, and they don't necessarily take care of their self-care. So I learned to tell, you know, to suggest to people, self-care isn't selfish. It isn't selfish at all. And so, but I would see them so tired, so weary, almost saying they can't find time to exercise. They can't find time to take care of themselves. But on the other hand, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So they would usually, the relationship with the coach was so trusted, and so important. You can tell your coach and have a conversation with that person almost more than you can tell your family, because they are more objective, and yet you get this trusted relationship. And I would have people stop by my office all the time when it wasn't their time for their appointment and say, I just had to check in with you. I just needed to say hi because I knew that you'd be there for me. So obviously it is very, very effective, and we want to reduce non-productivity.
Well, and a lot of times when we think of a health coach or a well-being strategy, the first thoughts that come to our mind is exercise, physical activity, nutrition, but well-being covers a very wide range of things. Let's talk a little bit about what comes to your mind when you think of all the different categories of well-being.
Wow, that's huge. Well, we spend an awful lot of time at work, wherever work is, but our occupation is part of that, occupational well-being, environmental well-being, which is, our surroundings and where we find ourselves. I find myself in my house alone, which can be very peaceful, but it's very alone, whereas somebody else right now is struggling with, balancing demands of using the computer, kids schooling, just their environment. Let's see, you're right. We used to just, in fact, it seems like it's been a while now. We used to just say, okay, we should set a nutrition goal and we should set a exercise goal. Those are the first two things, but it encompasses spiritual well-being. It encompasses sleep. That is absolutely huge. Sleep is
and just the whole emotional is a whole category within itself.
Right.
Social, your ability to interact with other people. I mean, it covers so many different things.
It does.
And each are important. And financial. I mean, financial is huge right now with the economy and a lot of people out of work. Financial creates a lot of stress. And so, how someone's job's going or not going, all that plays into someone's well-being. And then it comes out in how productive they are at work and how productive they are at home and how they get along with their family, and all that's a part of it. And so employers supporting and increasing awareness of how important that is and to take care of yourself can only benefit their customers in the long run. Hence why it's so important to increase the awareness.
Absolutely.
Workshops on health topics can take many different forms, whether in person or remote. Some are presentations, some are discussions, some are demonstrations, and many are very experiential. What kinds of workshops are your favorites, and which ones do you find or your past have found to be most effective?
Well, just kind of going on that subject of sleep, when I have taught a lunch and learn or a workshop on sleep, I have had the most turnout of almost any topic, and really? I think I've had a huge turnout. Another one, it's so varied, the things that affect us, but I did a lunch and learn once on laughter. So that was a big one. And, what we're going through right now is no laughing matter, but to be proactive in oneself and, look for humor in things can only help. One of the things that I'd noticed is right now, just some short topics like giving yourself grace and laughing at a situation like a Zoom meeting that didn't go well at the beginning. I think we've all kind of gotten really good at that now, but that first few weeks, I don't know if you heard it, but I remember hearing there was a manager who led a meeting. It was one of those first few weeks. And for whatever reason, her image, she could change it to a potato, and she was a potato the whole time she was doing, doing the lunch and learn. But to be able to laugh at yourself and not take anything too seriously. Some of the other topics that I think are really, really important are possibly, how to exercise at home, because exercise is such a stress reliever. How to keep connections in this remote world. Cooking classes are a really big deal.
Demonstrations on how to cook nutritious food at home.
Demonstrations on how to cook nutritious food at home, how to shop. You know, when you say my favorites, I have to say they're all my favorites. So we probably should go on to another question because I would just go on and on. Everything's my favorite, but I'd say sleep. Think about everything that stress affects. Stress affects your sleep, stress affects how you're interacting with people, stress affects your work, stress affects whether you feel like eating or not, or whether you're emotionally eating. I mean, really, that's how we're made. So.
Right. Let me invite those that are with us today, and we have a number of people that are participating, to send in their questions. If you've got questions for Michelle, please send those in and we'll bring those up. My next question are, companies create wellness committees or culture committees made up of employees that are champions who can kind of bring the work and file into some of these different activities. What's been your experience in getting these wellness committees organized and how effective they can be?
So the power of a group is just amazing. And I'm thinking of one client in particular where they've had a wellness committee for years and years. And I am part of their meetings right now. They're virtual, of course, but I used to go on site. And I was just amazed at the creativity that comes out of just people who want to create something better for themselves and someone else. Some of the different challenges, some of the different types of activities, and I would highly recommend that, even if you don't have a wellness program per se right now, to get together some champions, because you will be surprised at what the result is.
Yeah, there are people within almost every work site or workforce that are champions of helping other people, and they've experienced some things themselves. And a lot of times we think of increasing well-being awareness, and some of the things we think about are presentations and workshops and clinics and that sort of thing. But really, there's a variety of ways that a company can enhance the importance of well-being, like those webinars and workshops and seminars, but newsletters, health fairs, like you've mentioned, walking groups and challenges and competitions, and even ways that companies can handle their events, whether it's their Christmas or their holiday parties or their summer activities, the way they handle meetings and the policies in terms of the kind of food that's in the cafeteria or the food that's brought into meetings. Those are all ways that an employer can send a message that we care about your health and well-being, and we're going to promote healthy eating, healthy activities. Those are all things. What are some of the things you find?
Well, this is getting really specific. I realize that, but right now in our particular office, we are gearing up for a campaign in October that I'm actually helping to lead, and we're going to send out some Halloween humor and some recipes and different things like that, just a snippet here and a snippet there, so that if somebody reads it and then they all of a sudden are taken out of their stressful moment, they can laugh or whatever. But what we're really gearing up for, which is really kind of a tradition, but I think it's even going to be more interesting this year, is a Halloween costume contest. And I, for one, have not always gotten into Halloween, but I am so jazzed right now. So everybody's thinking about their costumes. So we're gonna have a Zoom meeting. We're gonna do a reveal one at a time and tell about our costumes. And I will tell you, it raises morale and we have so much fun. We have a few very competitive people. So even just things like that, take something simple that you've probably already done and adapt it to a remote situation. And I can't wait.
Yeah, it reminds me, one of the things that our team here has been doing is every other week, they'll take a half an hour to say, look, just jump on a Zoom meeting or a Microsoft Meet or whatever, and just let's not talk about work. Let's talk about something outside of work. What's your favorite podcast, or what's your favorite movie, or what books have you read recently that have been inspiring to you? And it's been fun to just hear from different people. And of course, not everybody can participate in every one, but just getting everybody in a Zoom meeting and talking about things that are not work related, but are personal, and just can share what you want to share. It's been fun.
That's exactly right. Yes, we're doing the same thing in a little bit of a different twist. We've had a lot of excitement around different trivia games. They have been hilarious. So really, you can take the simple things as long as you bring people together, which we can remotely. We've learned that. And the ideas just flow. And yesterday, we actually played Taboo as a group for about 15 minutes. And that was a blast, you know, so just different things. Try it, try something. It was really, really funny. So we did that for about 10 minutes and lightened the mood, and we all went back to whatever we were doing after that. And probably, you know, research does show if you take a quick break and completely don't think about what it is you've been focusing on, you know, you think, well, I might lose my train of thought, but you know what, actually, you just refreshed your mind and you're going to go back to it just that much more refreshed. So,
yeah, there's a lot of companies that, and whether it's remote or at the work site, start the day off with stretches. We'll stop in the middle of the afternoon and say, everybody get up out, you know, out of your offices or out of your desks and just stand up and let's do stretching or some kind of physical activity, get the blood flowing, kind of get that restart going. Those are all positive culture, employer awareness of well-being activities that can be very effective. Michelle, we only have a few minutes left. Is there any message you would like to leave in closing that we haven't maybe talked about that you'd like to share in final remarks?
This might just be a summary, but now more than ever, it's just really important that employees feel cared for, feel cared about, feel noticed, and feel valued. So I am a little biased, of course, but I can't think of any better way than providing them with wellness resources, fun activities, and of course the employer doesn't have to come up with any of that. There are wonderful programs such as Orient's wellness program and numerous others that can meet that need. And I would just say, you know, if you haven't thought about it before or haven't acted on it before, this would be the time to act. Your employees are going to thank you.
Nice. Michelle, thank you so much. Appreciate your involvement today. Let me just in closing mention that Resilience Pro is the sponsor of this series of webinars, and a brochure describing the solution is available for you to download through the control box. Our next webinar will be in 2 weeks, October 28th. The topic will be on organizational culture that supports mental health and well-being. My guest panelist will be Dr. Andy Crichton, who served as the Chief Medical Officer for Prudential Financial for 20 years, where he led some amazing innovation focusing on the well-being of their team members. Please join me on Wednesday, the 28th of October at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. As a reminder, the recordings of each of these webinars can be found on the goingonoffense.com website. The website also contains a host of ideas and suggestions and resources and companies that are offering free services, as well as the webinar. So take a moment and check it out and see how your organization can benefit from these resources that are being made available. With that, we'll conclude today and wish everyone a wonderful day. And Michelle, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good day.